All right, today we're going to open up a case file on this strange phenomenon that tends to pop up with some of the most successful people out there. And a lot of the time, they have no idea it's even happening. It's this idea of the bent mirror, and our whole investigation kicks off with one really strange quote.
So picture this. An executive is sitting in his office, and he's reading this big feedback report. And after just sitting there for 20 minutes in silence, that's his conclusion. Not, I need to work on this, not anger, just this calm, rational assumption that there must have been a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding about what exactly? Well, our investigation leads us straight to a 360-degree report. One of those deep dive reviews where they get feedback from every single angle of a person's work life.
And wow, the feedback was consistent. Like relentlessly consistent. His team, his peers, even his own boss, they all came back with some version of the exact same thing. It wasn't about his skills or how smart he was, it was about his presence, or really, the lack of it.
Now here's what makes this whole thing so fascinating. He wasn't being defensive, he wasn't lashing out. In his own mind, the feedback was just wrong. He truly, genuinely believed he was a good listener, which could only mean one thing. Everyone else must have misunderstood the questions. And that gap right there, between how he saw himself and how the rest of the world saw him, that's the heart of this entire mystery.
So this phenomenon, it actually has a name. It's called the mirror blind spot. And honestly, it's a super subtle but really powerful form of self-deception.
Think about it like this. If you spent your entire life looking at yourself in one of those funhouse mirrors, you just think that's what you look like, right? The reflection looks correct to you, so you'd never think to question the mirror itself. The mirror blind spot works the exact same way with how we see ourselves.
And this is not a new idea, by the way. The ancient philosophy of Vedanta actually has a word for this, Avidya. But it's a very specific kind of ignorance. It's not about just, not knowing a fact. It's a much deeper ignorance. It's fundamentally misreading reality while being totally convinced you see it with perfect clarity.
And this quote just nails it, doesn't it? If your tool for measurement is already flawed, there's no way you can use that same broken tool to see if it's accurate. You're completely trapped inside a faulty system. So the big question is, how does the ruler get bent in the first place?
Okay, and this is where it starts to get a little counterintuitive. Because often, the very things that make people successful are the exact same things that end up deceiving them.
It's so easy to just look at this and chalk it up to a character flaw, right? Arrogance, a massive ego, you name it. But the research suggests it's not quite that simple. It's more of a cognitive problem, almost like a byproduct of being a high performer.
So get this. Here's the paradox. To be a really successful leader, you need to be decisive. You have to get good at spotting patterns, making super quick judgments, and you have to operate with a ton of confidence. But those exact skills, when you turn them inward on yourself, create this powerful defense system that just rejects any information that doesn't fit with the self-image that's already made you so successful.
And the more you succeed using that system, the stronger and more sophisticated that internal defense becomes. The mirror doesn't just get a little bent, it gets reinforced with steel. And this isn't just some nice-sounding theory, there is hard data to back this up.
Yeah, this isn't just a theory. The research here is basically the smoking gun, and it exposes this massive gap between how leaders see themselves and what's actually going on. An organizational psychologist named Tasha Eurich did a ton of research into this exact issue, and well, what she uncovered was pretty staggering.
So she found that 95% of leaders believe they are self-aware. They are absolutely confident that they have a clear, accurate picture of their own strengths, their weaknesses, and how they impact the people around them. 95%.
But the reality? Only about 10 to 15% of them actually are. Just let that sink in for a minute. That gap is enormous. It means the vast majority of people in charge are operating with a bent mirror and are completely unaware of the distortion. So, if you can't trust your own reflection, what can you trust?
Well, the solution isn't to try and unbend the mirror yourself. We've kind of established that's impossible. No, the solution is to find an entirely new source of truth. And this brings us to a method developed by the legendary executive coach Marshall Goldsmith. It's a whole system designed specifically to bypass a leader's own flawed self-perception.
Here's the genius of how it works. Instead of asking the leader, "So, how do you think you're doing?" the focus shifts completely. You stop looking at the leader's internal bent mirror, and instead you start treating the team's collective experience as the true reflection.
Their perception is the only data that matters.
And the goal here isn't to prove the leader is wrong. The absolute crucial first step is for the leader to simply acknowledge the possibility that their mirror might be bent, that they are fundamentally incapable of seeing their own reflection with 100% clarity.
Which brings us all the way back to our original case file. What happened to our executive? The one who thought his whole team just misunderstood the questions.
Well, after his initial dismissal, he actually agreed to give this new approach a shot. And for the next year and a half, he went through this really structured process of listening to his stakeholders, not to his own internal story. And the result? 18 months later, that same executive was rated the highest performing leader in his entire division. And here is the most powerful takeaway of all. He didn't get a personality transplant. He didn't fundamentally change who he was as a person. He just changed his source of data. He stopped trying to fix a distorted reflection and started trusting the clear picture that everyone else was showing him.
Which really just leaves us with one last question. The data suggests that for about 85% of us, the answer is probably yes. So the real question isn't if your mirror is bent, but what piece of feedback have you dismissed lately that might have actually been the truth?